All right. That I hope I didn't say too much. It's quite a lot of material, I'm sure of it, but it all rounds up. And I'm really happy if you have some questions, or also if you want to relate it to your own research, how it could relate or not relate. You know, I'm very happy to entertain whatever you have.
Okay, let's first say thank you for this very insightful talk, and now we have some time for discussion. So anyone can just talk and say a question, but also introduce yourself and tell us about your research a little bit, the research topic. So if you would like to start.
Thank you, Professor Renn. Thank you very much for helping me explain the problems of questions on catalytic effects. And my name is Renn, and I come from Beijing, China. And I got my bachelor degree and master's degree both in Taipei, Taiwan, and both major in economics. Yeah, and I have a question about specifically Professor Yanazov. He recommended me a paper, which is a qualitative study on the multifaceted attributes of data centers in Nordic areas. I remember that there is a data center established in Iceland, located in a ex-military base, and ex-military building. And the question is that, at the point that central government and the local government we all very much promoted the construction of this data center. But you know, this data center actually did not bring too many job opportunities to local residents, and to some extent, the building is far away from the area that the residents they live, and so maybe this plan of data center is quite welcome by governments, but not welcome by those local residents. So my question is, in the process of catalytic in this process, how can we achieve better balance? I did not mention a perfect solution because, as you said before, because of the we can't always have a win-win conclusion. What we can better try our best to do is to be consistent with the theory of postmodern theory of arrangements. We can just achieve arrangements which can be mutually accepted by various stakeholders. And so I'm wondering, how can we achieve a relatively good balance between various stakeholders, such as governments, NGOs, and some environmental groups, and local citizens. Yeah, or in other words, how can we decide or confirm the ways of their participation? Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. There's, of course, a very crucial question, and we could refer to that case study because it's everywhere in the world. Is the siting problem. Siting problem, we have an unwanted facility. It could be an incinerator, it could be a data center, it could be solar panels, it could be wind farms, it could be a nuclear power plant. They're all unwanted facilities. And but we have to place them somewhere. So a lot of people are saying, okay, we place them there where population is the least organized. That's usually very poor neighborhoods. So all the bad things happen in poor neighborhoods, and the rich neighborhoods, they have a lot of agency. They can say, no, the waste, or the data thing doesn't come here. We want to have beautiful landscape and everything. And then it's not fair. So in a sense, if you now, we can go to 3 schools. If you go to the rap school, what would they say? They would say, okay, we compensate those poor villages for having that facility. So we say, okay, each of you, because you host that facility, will give you free electricity. actually the French have done this with nuclear energy. To each community and said, look, guys, you don't like the nuclear plant here, you get free electricity. And then, you better get it, buy into it. And that was a counter Higgs, supposed to be a counter Higgs. The Habermas school would say, well, what is best for France? What is best for Iceland? And of course, you have a common good on the communal level, you have a common good on the national level, you maybe have a common good for the global level. And you say, okay, what is the best for the local level? And the local level say, well, we don't want this building here, and because it doesn't employ anyone. And we can say, well, what would be good for the community, not for you personally, but the community. And they would say, okay, well, we'll need some jobs, maybe, a new school, or, we want to have a nice park. And I said, okay, well, those people who build the data center could provide also use a nice park and with a life center. And if you feel that that's something that gives a better common good for you in the locality, that is something we can combine. And then the same thing on national level to say, okay, well, people are maybe concerned about privacy, data banks. So you say, okay, well, how can we make sure that the privacy of each individual is being secured? And the same thing, we have the benefit of such a data bank for, let's say, health issues or whatever it is. And so you can do this for many possibilities. The arrangement thing, of course, is that you say, okay, what is a kind of arrangement that we can make, which sometimes it closes the Habermas solution if people have arguments for it, but you're not rating the arguments. So you just, so if somebody says, for example, I want to have a yellow roof on the data bank building because I like yellow so much. Well, and Habermas is, forget it, that's nothing to do with it, coming good. And the rugby will say, what is the interest of having a yellow roof? Others don't like that either, forget it. In the arrangement, you can say, well, if that makes people happy, why not? So we paint everything yellow. Whether it makes sense or not, doesn't make any. So those are different types of solutions. But I think what is very important is that and that's, I think, it's the gist of transdisciplinary research, that you look first who is involved. And that's not an easy task very often, because who is really affected, who believes is affected but not affected, who wants to recruit political support, although he's not affected. So you get different types of people, but you have to make that decision and know who is to be included. And then you need the right format to include them. If you have stakeholders, things like round tables like we have here is a very good thing. If the citizens themselves are concerned, then we have sometimes citizen assemblies or citizen forums against randomly selected citizens, because they have credibility among their peers. We have done this very often. In Japan, just like in many other countries, you have inquiries, hearings, where you have presidents are sitting there, and on a stage are sitting the experts and the decision makers, and the people are asking questions or being, getting mad, and they are saying, no, we're going to do this, and that's the reason why we're doing this, and very often it's very adversarial. Now, what we have done is we had randomly selected citizens. They went through a 3-week process of getting to know all the pros and cons of society issue, and then they were sitting on the stage. And they said, oh, this is my neighbor down there. This is, the person with whom I buy my books. So suddenly there's a totally different message. It's not those up there, it's one of us. And they say, well, we looked at it for 3 weeks, and we think it's actually good idea to have the data bank center. And that's the reason why, I'm your neighbor, and I don't, I'm just, by random chance, I was the one who could go more deeply into it. I hope you believe me. I said, sure, I'm your neighbor. And you get credibility, not legitimacy. And that's very good way to make sure that this kind of, communication between those who are affected and those who make the decisions are really taking place.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yes. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much for your lecture. My name is Francisco. I'm from Mexico City.
Okay, Francisco?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, my research is on the history of meditation manuals and meditation groups in post-war Japan. And yeah, so my major is kind of philosophy. Yeah, I would like to ask if you would include groups like, anarchists and neo-Nazis in the case of Germany, or, like drug cartels in the case of Mexico, or do you think that those kind of groups have no place in public sphere and they should just be handled through violence? Which one do you believe is the right approach, or do you think that the monopoly of violence by the state, by nation states, and perhaps international organizations is kind of a necessary, maybe not enough, but absolutely necessary element of the kind of decision-making process you're talking about?
Yeah, a very difficult question. Thank you very much, Francisco. And we have actually, have this problem, unfortunately now in Germany, because we have a very right-wing party, it's called AfD, and that, I don't think it's really neo-Nazi, but it's very right-wing. And so the question is, do we include them or not? And the question of who to include is a very crucial question. Now, when we say, okay, you can take part, but only if you agree to the rules of the discourse. And the rules of discourse is nobody has more power than the other one. There's no one privilege. That's group discourse. Only arguments can be exchanged, and you cannot say you're dumb or, no violence is allowed, that's of course. And in the end, we want to have a consensus based on arguments, not on pure beliefs. If you sign into this, you go part of it. Now, some sign in and then they don't apply. And so in the beginning, when we have a round like this one, is okay, we'll reiterate the rules again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rules of communication. Everybody has a right to speak. Everybody has a right to critique. Nobody is moralizing the other person. So there are, of course, what's around 10 different rules. They have to sign it. And they have to sign that I am allowed to interfere if they violate. And if somebody said, oh, you're so stupid. I said, oh, rule number 3, oh, nobody's stupid. I'm not saying it's stupid. You can say, I don't like your argument. And you can have counter. You won't say you're stupid. And you signed it. And do it. And sometimes, those people don't comply. And they say, no. And I said, okay, do it 3 times and then you're out. Yeah, sometimes you have to have reserve to do that. If you don't believe you, that's the same thing which I'm saying on the national level. If you have, rules, I think, there are some rules like passing the street when light is red, that's not what I mean. But there are generic rules and it's like civil rights. If you violate them, you're not part of the discourse. That is where violence is allowed. Make sure you're not doing it. That's like crime. If somebody comes in here and kills one of you, you're not saying, oh, I have a discourse with you about whether that was good or bad. It's clear violation of civil rights. And that's something we don't have to discuss. In my view. Well, sometimes the borders, it's not easy to draw. Civil disobedience, which I think is an empty corner sometimes it's legitimate, sometimes it's probably not legitimate. So it's not an easy answer to this. But very often what we've seen, for example, with the right-wing party in Germany, actually living in a part of Germany where that is fairly strong. And I said, all the voters of these parties are welcome to be in the discourse, but not the functionaries, not the leaders. And they don't want to be there. They hate this. Well,
my name is Jenny, and I majored in international relations with a specific focus on Taiwan and its relations between other surrounding East Asian countries. Yes, I'm from Taiwan, but I have done my bachelor degree in Kyoto University. Yes. So my question is, so we've just learned about the catalyst research methods, and I was trying to imagine, like, how do we look, if it is possible to apply the same methods in diplomatic settings, in which most of the actors are countries, and like between countries, or is it possible to do the same applications, or is there already any examples for this?
That's a very good question. I think, in political theory, I think the so-called rep school is very strong. It's called realist school in political science, and they're saying it's only interest. So, you have to find win-win situations. Otherwise, you'll never get anywhere. But lately, I think, or not lately, I think there's also a very strong element to have value-based foreign policy. Value-based foreign policy is saying, well, we have an idea about the common good for the entire world, and we feel obliged to it. And even if it's not in our interest, we go for this. And so, for example, during now the Ukrainian crisis, Germany was faced with a very difficult decision. They got cheap gas from Russia. And of course, because we got 75% of our gas, everything came from Russia. So it was a very difficult decision. The interest of Germany was to keep gas cheap, keep energy security, but we were certain the money we paid for it would go into weapons against Ukraine. So what do? And there was a big debate. I mean, and the right-wing party of Germany said, "Oh, we don't care about Ukraine. We want to have cheap gas. It's our gas here. We need that." And the German minister, she's from the Green Party, she said, "No, we are value-based. We say we somehow get along even with less gas and with much higher price for gas. But we are not giving Russian money to kill people." So that's, of course, would be more harmonizing in a sense. And the question is, can you use this in negotiation? I think if you say some of the COP, the COP that's about climate change, some of them were very close to this value base. People say, have to do something. Our interest would be to be free by it. I would say, okay, let the others pay a lot of money, we will benefit from it because it's global. But there were quite a few nations that said, no, we have a responsibility and we want to do something for the country.
I think Colombia was some kind of interesting example.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of fossil fuels, but they signed on various declarations to abandon fossil fuels.
Yeah. It's and I know much of that is fake, because compliance is not strictly regulated. If that works for Taiwan and China, definitely. I mean, that's something where there's very strong emotions on both sides, and of course, China, of course, is totally committed to have Taiwan be united. On the other hand, there may be benefits for China not to have Taiwan in terms of economic benefits. And of course, if the rest of the world is saying, okay, we will support Taiwan in case of an attack. That, of course, would also make a difference. And Ukraine may be the case, very interesting case. I mean, if the US now is not supporting Ukraine, Ukraine loses the war, Europe alone cannot afford it. And then, of course, China will say, okay, if the US is not paying attention to Ukraine, they will not pay attention to Taiwan. Yeah, but then we're back to, real politics. Yeah, well, no, I don't know. I mean, I think there had been negotiations in the past that were trying to, find a good common agreement between the two, but at this point, doesn't look like
A little bit, let's say, not that positive.
Yeah, I mean, we should be realistic about it. I mean, I wish it would be definitely, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Nariko Munohashi. I'm from Japan, but I lived in France, and also I stayed in Germany for 6 months.
Oh.
I know. Actually, my background is a little bit different from other students. I graduated from sociology department, and then I got a master in global studies. And also I have working experience in public relations, which though not stakeholder relations. And my question will be a little bit general, but I'm interested in what is the contribution and role of the researcher in society. I mean that business seeds, we have a lot of consultants, think tank people who create strategy. Especially they are really like goal-oriented scenario planners. So we have these kind of people, and also we have multi-stakeholders. And so my question is, what are the contribution could be done by researcher, especially for the discussion of complicated issues?
Yes. No, thank you very much. Well, I think, when we talked about different types of knowledge, a lot of these consultancies have a lot of experiential knowledge. At some point, they went to university, but that's probably 10 years ago. So they're not really up to the latest methodology and so on. So the researchers very often have this good, let's say, have the better instruments to develop evidence-based scenarios and situations. So if you think about climate change, I mean, basically the models that we're dealing with were developed in universities or big research centers. But to implement these models, to say what are the policy implications, very often this is being done by consultancies. It's okay where we have some model from Carnegie Mellon University, we have some model from whatever Institute of Atmospheric Sciences and Santa Monica, the two big ones. And what do they mean for Japan? And then they develop, some strategies out of this, but they don't develop the models. So this is, I think, one of the major things I believe science can help. And then we are very much in the second and the first science. The second thing is that most of these consultancies are not designing processes. They're using the processes they know. So they say, okay, we do lobbying. So we say as lobbyists, what you have to do is get up the prime minister anytime, invite him for dinner, do all kinds of things, and then start lobbying. When we say, okay, we do processes, we say, okay, we use randomly selected citizens that we're doing it. No consultant ever come to that idea. So we design new processes. We find new ways that complex knowledge can be disseminated in different ways. And then consultants can use it. That's why. But I think that's what universities are for. They have innovative methods, innovative approaches. And that leads for all three, for the catalytic, for the goal-oriented, as well as for the classics.
Thank you very much. By the way, my research topic is about positive impact and also conflict when the new energy industry is creating.
Mhm.
So, for example, Japan is more renewable energy, but they have a big plan. But what can we propose for local economy or local cities? This is my interest.
Yes, okay, well, very interesting. Yeah, yeah, sounds very, yeah.
Okay, maybe one last question.
Yeah, I'm not,
I mean,
yeah,
you have a meeting
I have a
from,
meeting at 6,
from
yeah,
6,
that's
yeah?
true, yeah, so I need to stop here, 3
so
to 6.
let's have a last question. Who wants? Okay, go ahead.
So I'm Tomoko, and I'm also new to this seminar because I'm usually at the Center for Southeast Asian Studies, and I usually focus on the topic of China and international institutions. So I'm a political scientist working from, if I can use your semantic wordings, I think I'm in category number 1 with the community. And I was trained partly in the United States, so I kind of have this realistic paradigm of political science in mind. But I think the way I'm trying to do research is that I'm not completely sure whether I should jump to category number 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like testing things out with China to see the extent to which I can take it as a peculiar country by like using number 1 first and then testing out things with China. So in terms of like thinking about my longer span of like research, because I just finished my PhD last June, and now I'm in the stage of like thinking about what projects am I going to work on and so on. I wonder what advice you would have for like researchers with regard to like age, career stage, and how they plan on with their identities. Because when I spoke to actually several like researchers about forming identities, they actually said you wouldn't want to like jump back and forth between 1, 2, and 3. Usually like a very good researcher would stay in like category number 1 throughout their lives, 2 throughout their lives, and they usually don't jump back and forth. But when I study about China, the more I study about it, the more I feel like I'm going on to number 2 and 3. And especially the Center for Southeast Asian Studies, we have so many anthropologists, and they constantly question me saying like, you're like a hard-boiled political scientist, like, aren't you going to jump out of number 1 someday? So I wonder about your people.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think that, very often, it depends on the topic. So very often, if it's really about instrumental value, number 1 is fine. And you can use it very often. And if you use it really well, it actually also helps resolve. If something's very value laden, or if it's very often a non-zero in the distribution game. So if somebody wins, the other one loses. Then number 1 works only with power. So it's only either you get Taiwan or you don't. There's nothing in between. Then it's either an issue of power, and then of course it becomes, not, it doesn't sort of come good. Then it sounds very good to go to 2 and 3. And I think a lot of the issues that we're dealing with are not issues that you can use utility and interest as the only way to frame the problem. Let me give you a typical example of abortion. You cannot say what is the utility of having abortion rights or not. And that's an evaluation question. So if you believe that a person, after conception is a person, you cannot negotiate it now. If you think at the plan of cells, that's something very different. So in a sense, if it's very value-based, and if it's not a zero-sum game, then very often you need to go to 2 and 3. Sometimes it's just an arrangement, like, an abortion, you can say, well, you say 3 months. No reason why it should be 4 months, 2.5 months. But you need to arrange something. It's a convention. Or you can say, it's, you find an arrangement between China and Taiwan. You put a Chinese flag on top of the Taiwan building, say, okay, that shows we're part of China, but they can do what they want. Or be an arrangement. nothing to do with arguments, it's something very symbolic. And that may help. But I think as a negotiator, you have to find out, does it work for win-win? And is it just in the end? Only power? If that's the case, that's an easy win. If that's not working, and you can say it's only power or only random events, then you should have to go to
Como coisa e tal.
Yeah. So I assume I should be flexible.
Yeah. We can continue this conversation anytime. I'm here until July 4th, so US National Holiday.
Yeah, I would like to invite you to have time to come again, maybe
Yes.
May or June, to one of our seminars.
Very happy to do that. And if you want to address me individually, we can do that. I mean, you can send the email around by email address. I even have now Kyoto email address. But
We can arrange also like individual meetings.
Yeah.
If some students want to have an individual meeting, please let me know. Okay, so I'm sorry, but yeah, Professor Renn has a meeting from 6 o'clock, so we need to close. So thank you very much again.
Yeah.
We will continue this discussion.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
And if possible.